Everybody. Welcome to City Lit's virtual event with Michele Weldon, author of Act Like You're Having a Good Time, in conversation with Heidi Stevens. Michele is an award-winning author, journalist, and emeritus faculty in journalism at Northwestern. She's the author of 6 nonfiction books and has contributed chapters in 7 other books. Her work has appeared in the New York Times, Washington Post, Chicago Tribune, and more. A senior leader with the Op-Ed Project, she has led Public Voices Fellowship initiatives at several universities and foundations. She served on several advisory boards, such as Life Matters Media and Global Girl Media Chicago. She's a former member of the Board of Directors of Journalism and Women's Symposium, and she's the mother of 3 sons. Heidi Stevens writes a daily column for the Chicago Tribune, where she has worked since 1998. Her nationally syndicated columns reach more than 1 million print and online readers each day, appearing in newspapers across the country. She's a frequent guest on local and national TV and radio stations, where she's called upon to discuss current events, pop culture, and issues around gender, race, and relationships. She also records a weekly podcast with family therapist John Duffy called On Purpose, the Heidi Stevens and Dr. John Duffy podcast. It is my great pleasure to welcome you both back to City Lit Books, even though it's virtual, and I'll turn it over to you.
Thank you. Thank you. Thanks for coming.
Much. Hi, Michele.
Hi, Heidi.
You're going to read something for us, right?
Yes, thank you.
Good.
This is in part 1 of the book. In hotel rooms where I touched down for a work trip, I greedily watched reality shows about losing hundreds and hundreds of pounds, traveling across the globe to see the 90-day fiancé, preparing an elaborate cake in the shape of cartoon characters for an event for 1,000, tearing down houses to rebuild mansions. I even liked the shows about choosing the perfect wedding dress. And I marvel that the women in the episodes complain about the bodice, but never the price. In those shows, the befores and afters seem so simple and exact, a defining moment, before and after the commercial, the big reveal. That is the part I feel most misinformed by, that I believed there was a before and after my children were grown, with mountains of time for myself and a view of the lake from a balcony above the 12th floor condo where I imagined that I lived deliriously happy. I look at ads for 1- and 2-bedroom condos longingly, woozy with possibility, a driving thirst for clean lines and floor-to-ceiling windows, a canopy bed and thick peach silk curtains lined and puddled on the floor. In my dream of the future, for some reason, I'm taller. I am prettier and happier in my after, fewer lines on my face. I have firmer arms. I feel settled. I do not need so much Tylenol. I do not need a haircut desperately, and my feet are polished. The bottom smoothed and cared for, not rough and flaking, testimonials to my barefoot strolls outside. My house smells like the expensive candles from Anthropology, not the poor imitations I buy at Marshall's on sale for $6.99. Wouldn't feel this disquiet, so incomplete, like a discard in the clearance bin at Target. I would have more time off work in the after I dream of. Not so many weekly conference calls on Zoom where people eat lunch on screen. Not so many Uber rides to the airport, not so much feedback that is sometimes impatient, not so many conversations about deadlines, meetings, clients, stories, things that need to be done, replaced, edited, created, fixed. Not so much proving myself, worrying about personalities and the feelings of the people who mind deeply when I answer an email with a simple yup. There would be no manufactured drama. It would just be work, and we'd be kind to each other, patting each other on the back, toasting success, happy. In my fantasy, I imagine the contents of our basement magically disappeared, skipping the storage. Having saved the photo albums and the trophies and the art projects and the things I just could not throw away, I would take photos of the items, finally give up and toss. No one would miss them or complain. But I would like to keep the storage bin with all the beach towels and the wonderful beach mat my sister Madeline gave me that is straw, or maybe it's bamboo, and you can roll it and tie it together to carry the size of an encyclopedia. I will always keep the earrings from my mother, the cross my father wore in World War II, the fuchsia silk couches, these monuments to them that hold my memories intact, fuse them upright like Corinthian columns. I have several of my father's watches and clocks, and none of them work. I picture myself in my next life with a new queen-size bed, not the one that I sleep in now that is from the 80s. In my dream, it's a new bed with a new mattress, the pillow top kind, new sheets, not the ones I've slept in for years and wash each week in a flurry of tidiness. I picture the second bedroom as a tiny office with no one's damp black socks on the center table. No dirty dishes and half-empty cups marking the table space and rings and crumbs. Like a lot of people, I've never had a kitchen like the ones featured in the magazines, with the steel appliances and the dishwasher with as many settings as in the cockpit of a small airplane. Never had a floor I didn't need to sweep twice a day because the dirt shows. I've never had a quiet dishwasher. Those make me suspicious. I know none of what I've lived through is hardship or difficult or even inconvenient. Years ago, when I was a single working mother, gasping in panic with the boys young and in school, I fantasized about what it would be like not to have to hire someone to watch them so I could walk out the door. That phase of it has been over for 10 years. But what did I see for myself when I was this age I am now? Another place, another me. I did not know I would still sometimes cry at night and in the shower, that I would have real longing and regret. That.
I love that. It strikes me that you set up the before and after in this chapter, and maybe in your mind as well, around your kids becoming adults, and that maybe you thought your identity would change from existing to care for and provide for others into caring for and providing for yourself at some point, and talk a little bit about how and whether that became blurred. I mean, did you imagine it as sort of a clean stop? My kids are a certain age now, and now
Oh,
I for me, and I decorate for me, and I spend for me. And
absolutely.
and did that hard stop not happen, or did it happen and you found that what you expected to come with it didn't come with it?
So I hate to tell you, Heidi, because your children are way younger than mine, but there's no hard stop. And two of my sons have moved back home. So, and they're 31, 29, and 26. So, COVID has happened. A lot of other things have influenced that. But yeah, that's what I feel, as I said in that chapter, most misled by, that there was a before and after. It's like, okay, when's the empty nest part? Right?
Why don't I live in a condo with a view?
Right. When does the place smell good?
Right.
When am I not cleaning up after someone else? When can I stand up and eat crackers for dinner? Yeah. So that was probably really foolish. And I'm learning that now and adjusting.
But in addition to, I mean, whether we can agree it was foolish or not, and I don't think it is, I think the culture certainly convinces you that that's the case. It seems to me the premise of the whole book that there's identity wrapped up in there too, that it's not just about your schedule or your view or what sort of bed you're going to have or not have. It's also how you feel about yourself and your purpose, and that there's not a clean stop where your identity and your purpose goes from being one thing to another. Simply
right. Well,
your kids don't need you in the same ways. Right.
Well, I think identity is always complicated, and you're not just one thing. You're not, a mother of small children and then not a mother anymore. So I think all of that is complicated, and purpose gets mixed up in all that. And I write about that in the book also, is trying to see if the life I lead is purposeful and has meaning, and if the work I do has a larger impact, right? So that's more to explore. And I think it's worth exploring. I mean, I wrestle with the idea that maybe it's just narcissistic and a waste of time to do this kind of self-exploration. But I hope not. And I also have heard from others that it to articulate these kinds of struggles is helpful to other people who feel the same way and maybe aren't able or don't have the time to articulate it and explore it in writing.
Yeah. There was a line that well, there were a lot of lines that I underlined, but this one in particular, you wrote, I expected I would do more, be more, give more. And I wondered as you were writing that, if you felt like millions of people could relate to that, or if you felt the opposite, a little bit alone in that, or maybe a little bit of both.
Well, a little bit of both. You're right, Heidi. You know, I happen to have a lot of friends, well, like yourself, who are highly accomplished and have done great things with their lives and have had enormous impact. And while I'm not jealous of that or envious, I'm appreciative of what they're able to accomplish. I think back on what I intended for myself and what I dreamed of, and those dreams have not come to pass. And it's time to, you know, at my age, I'm 62 years old, it's time to say, well, likely all those aren't going to come to pass. So I can't create regardless of ambition, I can't create and manifest all those dreams I had for myself. So I think that is confronting, and also it can give you a sense of relief when you make peace with that. I haven't totally made peace with that because I still have a lot of ambition, but I feel it's necessary to address it so that you don't have, you know, anger about it, and you don't feel fooled by the diminishing of possibility, because possibility gets less and less and less the older you get. It's just a fact.
Yeah.
Right?
So I was also curious that I read and read and read till the end, waiting for you to say some specific thing that you had hoped to accomplish that you hadn't by now. Like, I dreamed of being a foreign correspondent, or I dreamed of a Pulitzer or something. And I thought it was very relatable that you had sort of a sense of things that you wanted to accomplish that maybe you didn't, but they weren't, I never came across a checklist, other than honestly when you were talking about like the swimming pool scene, you know, when you're little and you're saying, I'm going to be a world famous ballerina, and then I'm going to be a world famous writer. But, you know, that's 6-year-old Michele, right?
That's right.
So do you have, even if it's not spelled out, do you have a mental list of things, and now you have decided it's time to toss it?
So, you know, that's so interesting, Heidi, because I sort of push back against that, and all the prescriptive books written, you know, by women my age and for women my age, you know, like, you know, eat, pray, love. Right. Yeah, trek across the desert and then everything will be fine. You know, have X number of bucket list experiences and then you're okay. I can't even articulate the bucket list experiences, you know, other than I do really want to at some point go to Australia, because I just think they speak cool. And I understand there's a lot of really wonderful museums and views. Yeah, I resist that, because that's really not how I want to look at things, like checking it off, because you can never be a comprehensive enough list, and likely you're not going to accomplish them all and check them off, and then what? Right. So I always wonder where the people is like that. There's 3 things left on my bucket list. I'm like, well, I hope you're getting a new list, because then what? I mean, if you just say, hi, I've done everything on my bucket list. So anytime now. So
just kind of inviting the Grim Reaper to show up.
Right.
Yeah.
Well, we don't want to talk about that now. That's too close to reality right now, because we don't know where the Grim Reaper could be. The grocery store right now.
Yeah. It's true.
We got to stay away from that. Yeah.
So I want to, this is going to be a little therapy-ish, but I just have to say, another line that just jumped off the page at me was really early in the book. Said, it's impossible not to feel empty when you're emptied every day. And then later in the book, that wonderful quote from your mom after the swimming pool scene, where the mean little girl said, "You're so full of yourself." And you told your mom, and your mom said, "Well, why would you want to be empty of yourself?" Which I love, and you painted on your wall, by the way.
Right.
On all of our walls. That's so
right?
perfect. But I just thought two really interesting points about the feeling empty that your mom spoke to and that you spoke to, that you felt emptied by meeting so many needs, right, of your sons,
Right.
but also career needs and financial
Right.
needs, and they're all related, but that at the end of the day, how could you not feel empty? You had been emptied.
That's right. Well, so I feel like a lot of women I know feel that way and maybe don't, spell it out quite like that. And right, God bless my mother for saying that. But she had all kinds of great sayings. Like when my sisters and I would ever say someone was mean and said this to us, and my mother would say, "So would you be upset if a dog was barking at you? That makes as much sense as a dog barking." And it's like, okay, then I guess that's that.
Yeah.
But yes, why would you want to be empty of yourself is such a great line. But it also, I do feel empty of myself. I mean, I think, both my parents have passed, so I am not, doing caretaking of them or caretaking of anyone sick. And, my sons are, of course, are caring for themselves. But I think a lot of us are are caretakers, and that is very draining, as is, work right now. A lot of people can relate to that. I mean, I'm 12 hours a day in this room in my home office, right? And always like fulfilling other meeting deadlines, getting things done, checking all those boxes, all day long, every day.
Yeah.
And I mean, as you are, as so many people are, that it feels like, when do you get a chance to replenish, right? And especially in this, COVID environment and this, very precarious cultural and economic and political and social justice climate that we're in, when can any of us relax and refill?
Right.
So, that's something else we all are considering right now.
Right, absolutely. I'm curious, I felt throughout the book that you felt compelled to acknowledge that, and you did it at the beginning tonight, acknowledge that there's a certain amount of indulgence maybe in this process, right? And I wondered if you did that out of your own sort of sense of not wanting to be full of yourself, or if you felt that was external pressure on you to do that. And I'm also curious if you think a male writer would feel the same pressure.
Yeah, that's interesting. That the gender question is interesting. I don't think I know a male writer who would feel that way. And it also is the way I was raised, and I'm really cognizant of how blessed and privileged I am. And that's also, intersects with the work that I do now, and the, work I've always done as a journalist. I think knowing that there are so many things I don't ever have to deal with, as a, white woman of privilege, there are things that just never will touch my life. And being aware that even making a complaint of anything I have in my life is indulgent and kind and selfish. So I'm aware of that. I'm also aware that it's very real for me, and that I know many, many, many people it's also very real for. And just to keep it in that context, and then my parents would say to us often the phrase, to whom much is given, much is expected. So I always felt a sense of that responsibility. And while, growing up, I thought that meant, empty the dishwasher and do your chores, because you're given this life. But then, of course, it means something much bigger in terms of what your responsibility is as an individual, and how you maintain integrity and authenticity. But yeah.
Well, that's maybe a good segue to the privilege chapter, which I know you and I had lunch maybe in January or February, and you
That's right.
mentioned even back then that this was really a hard chapter for you to write, and even maybe a little bit to decide whether to include, right?
That's right. That's right. Yeah, exactly. The book was due in January, and I was, that was even before all of the most recent social justice protests and racial injustice was happening. It was before George Floyd. It was before Breonna Taylor. Of course, things have been happening for 400 years. But I had thought about not having the privilege chapter in the book, and then I felt like the book was then meaningless, because avoiding it, addressing it, felt really hollow. And I'm glad I did, and I got a lot of help with that chapter. I had a few different versions of it, and I had a lot of input on that, and I felt in the end very confident that, or at least as confident as I could be, that it wouldn't be misinterpreted, or that I would come off in a way that I didn't intend. And I haven't heard negative feedback about it, so that's a good thing.
Yeah, I thought it was really brave. I'm curious when you say you had a lot of feedback on it and in the writing process, to talk a little bit about that. Just walk me through what that looked like.
Well, quite literally, I asked my, black and brown close friends and confidants to look at it, and they would say, no, you can't say that phrase. That's triggering. You can't say this, and this is a cliche, and you can't say that, and rethink that, rephrase that. Not they were not telling me what to do, but they were saying how things come off.
Sure.
Because there is a real danger as and I'm sure you think about this in your work, what you write about, you don't want to sound like, well, that's not me, so I'm not those people, so I'm so I'm fine.
Absolved. Yeah,
right.
You don't want to absolve yourself.
That's right. And the whole allyship stuff, well, I'm an ally. It was like, good, yay.
Yeah, performative.
Right. And in your work, you do an excellent job of expressing and articulating other people's stories and being authentic in yourself. And so I applaud you for that. And I look to you for that. I think you do a really great job.
Thank you. I was excited, I'll be honest, that's the word, to see you quote white fragility in that chapter. And one of the things that, as I was reading it, and as you say, I do sometimes write about race, and I try to be very inclusive of the whole, I cover Chicago, right? I work at a Chicago newspaper, so I try to make sure my writing is accurate and reflective of Chicago, which is only a third white, right? So my stories shouldn't be all about white people, or my experts shouldn't always be white. Anyway, one of the things that really struck me in White Fragility was the idea that, like, if white people don't talk about race, and if we don't assume that race is a topic for white people to grapple with and discuss, sort of reinforces this notion that white is like the default, that people are white, and then it's sort of an aberration when you're not, right?
Right. Well, and that's in the vernacular when people say non-white. It's like,
Yeah.
They don't call women who identify as female non-males.
Right.
Right?
Yeah.
Yeah.
So
Right.
I loved, for that reason too, that you wrote that chapter, that this was like, here you are, very courageously and publicly grappling with what it means for you to be white, because that is a thing. That is not just the default. That is a thing that is separate from being Black, that is separate from being
Right.
separate from being South Asian. And so for that reason, and because you did it so well, but also for that reason, I thought it was really good that you did it.
Thank you. That means a lot coming from you. It really means a lot. And that it is something I feel deeply. It's not just using language to say something that I think will be quoted. So yeah, it's something that, and it was risky. It absolutely was risky.
Right.
So
yeah, you put yourself out there on that topic, and you're certainly opening yourself up to be misinterpreted or, criticized on a sensitive issue, for sure.
That's right. Right.
Yeah. So I've read other books of yours and also consider you a friend. So I feel like I know a little bit more of your story, for example, your marriage and your divorce, and you didn't go into a lot of details in this book. You talked about having a husband and then suddenly not, or you talked about
I think he's gotten enough ink from me.
Okay.
Right?
That
was 25 years ago. I feel like, asterisk, read earlier works. Right?
Yep. Okay. Yeah, I wondered.
Google it.
There was a little bit about the annulment, and you talked about stuff, and talked about it in sort of metaphors like storms and things like that. And I just wondered about even as a writer, I'm just curious about how you came to the decision to not include a lot of that in this book.
Yeah, well, because it was 25 years ago, and moved beyond, and it also feels like it almost happened to another person. I picked up my first book that came out in 1999, it's 21 years ago, and read a part of it. I was like, wow, that was something, it feels like a completely different life. And I also, because the 2015 book, that memoir, was a whole lot about my sons and raising them. They're not really in this that much, because this was, enough already, right? If they want to dive into their life experiences, they can write a book themselves. Yeah, and hopefully I'll be really wonderful in it. But
this one's about you.
Right. And I felt like I've given a lot of ink and time to the past. So to that.
Yep. Yeah. Do any of your sons show proclivity for writing or
no, although they're not bad writers. It's my middle son, Brendan, does some live storytelling. He's actually quite hilarious.
Oh, cool.
And he did Second City when he was in Chicago. He's in Cincinnati now, but he does some of that. And my youngest son was a journalism major at University of Iowa and hated it so much. He's moved into finance after freshman year, fall semester. Right. So good for him, because he makes as much money as I made when I was like 55. So
you can live in
So good.
condo with a gorgeous view.
That's right. Or be locked in his basement, one of the two. But
Right, one of the two. I should remind people, go ahead and put questions in the chat if you want. We'll open it up to questions anytime you guys are ready to ask them. I have kind of a writing process question, because I know you obviously are a prolific writer, you teach writing. I feel like you have really mastered, in a way that I envy and also just really admire, the ability to sort of lull your readers into this sort of like comfort. You just feel like you're being told a story, and then you zing us with like a funny line or like a poignant line. Like I would be reading and all of a sudden like be overcome with some kind of feeling, like I would start to cry or I would laugh out loud, and I wonder if that's, is that a style? Do you practice that? Do you teach that?
you mean like the sucker punch writing?
Yeah.
So I feel, I mean, you write every day also. I mean, I write for love and money. I write to pay the mortgage. I write to pay the insurance. This kind of writing, the book writing and the essays I do, that's about 20% of my writing life. The other 80% is, I'm an editorial director of a women's leadership organization, and then all the work that I do for op-ed. That's writing that's intellectual. That comes from here,
Mm-hmm.
right? You write 1,000 words a day. What's due, right? And that's
Mm-hmm.
here. But the writing in my essays and in this book and my other books, it comes from the heart. While it's still intellectually athletic, it also, I have to access a place of calm and trust in myself to get to those hard moments that I can articulate. Because you can't just literally write off the top of your head your whole life, but it takes longer to write from a deeper place. And I also, that writing is in layers, and that doesn't come out the first time, come out as it does in the book. That's a lot of rewriting. And to that end, I've, like I said, I've been in a writing group for about 20 years with really magnificent people, and called out every Wednesday night. We read up to 10 pages of work, and they're like, no, just cut that whole thing. And then they make suggestions, and they'll say, dive more into here. Here's where the heat is. Here's where this is the point you're trying to make. Stop talking about the wallpaper. Go into what it felt like for you. Yeah. So I get a lot of help that way. And so to answer your question about the writing process, and I also saw something in the chat on that, is there's two kinds of writing. It's like writing for money, for work that's intellectual, and then ineffective, but then writing things that really, really deeply matter to me. Yeah. That's a different kind.
Yeah, it looks like there's a question. Michele, has your writing process changed during COVID?
Well, yeah, I mean, I have more time to write, actually, because I don't travel anymore. I was traveling 1 to 4 times a month for the op-ed project, which is why I was in those hotel rooms watching all those TV shows and ordering room service. I don't do that anymore. I don't commute anymore. I don't travel for work anymore. So all those hours that I was doing all that, those are writing hours now. So I'm actually more productive during COVID as far as writing goes, because all those other distractions are eliminated. And I have never felt like, oh God, I have to write today. I'm always like, I have to write today. Yeah. Right? It's not like I'm not tarring, I'm not doing blacktop on a driveway. Right. I get to pull things out of my brain and type them and press send. I mean, it's fun.
Yeah.
right? And I am now also, I don't know how you've ever felt, but when people say that, I have writing block, I'm like, really? What's that like? Right? Because I've always had to meet the deadline, or,
Right.
you always have to. It's like, what's writing block like?
Yeah.
Like, sometimes you write worse than others.
Yeah.
Right? Some you might feel this way, because I certainly do. Sometimes I'm writing and I'm like, oh, this is so terrible.
Oh, yeah.
Right. And then I'm like, ooh, and then you sort of close your eyes and send it in. Or other times where I'm, delusional, typing like, oh, this is just magic.
Right. How did I come up with
this is the prize. I'm winning the prize for this. And then somehow when you print it out and then read it in an hour, you're like, ooh, that was such drivel.
Yeah.
So, yeah, it depends. It's a lot. And I find that I'm in different moods. I mean, just as everyone, and not like I'm so, chameleon-like, but, we're all in different moods every day. So it's kind of helpful to then layer the writing in the different moods that you're in.
Yeah.
So work on a piece at different times, if you can. That's a luxury.
Yeah. You had the chapter talking about public speaking and how that really fills you up, especially the applause. But I think that it's probably maybe, well, I don't want to, I feel like there's probably a little bit more than the applause that fills you up. I think the idea of, connecting with others and having this community in the room and having, your words really land with people and make a difference in their lives in that moment, and probably the moments after they leave the room as well. But I wonder if you're feeling, speaking of COVID, if you're feeling that absence, because we're really not gathering rooms and talking anymore.
Sure. I mean, this would be, a live event. We'd get to be with each other pre-COVID. So yeah, that's, when I think about it, it's like, that's really somewhat pathetic to have my self-worth tied up in the affirmations, but there it is. It is, right? So I feel like I always need to be productive or have an impact or have something to show for, not just a day's work, but a year's work, or to feel that something resonated or landed. I could never, maybe it's a huge ego problem, but I could never be one like, oh yeah, don't mention my name. I just did it. I was like, really? Like, really? No, I'm not into the anonymous thing. Yeah, definitely mention my name.
Yeah, be sure you say my name a couple times.
Right. I used to say at, I taught at Medill for 18 years, and I used to tell the freshman students that, when they get published, you get a byline high. It's like, yeah, you read that and you get like, it's really exciting, get a byline high. And one student said, Professor Weldon, I told my parents that you said you get high every time you write a story. I'm like, no, don't call your parents back. I didn't tell you that you get high every time. It's a byline high.
Byline high. Yes, it's very clean. There's nothing
very clean. There's no waste of tuition there.
Right. All right. That reminds me of another part of your book that I underlined. I wonder about what will happen when no one is asking me anymore to send in 800 words on what I think, when editors stop returning emails promptly. I'm simultaneously afraid of dying without having an impact. I'm afraid that I have not done enough for other people, that the goal of serving others has only been when convenient, even as I schedule a meeting for one of the 5 boards of advisors where I volunteer. So here you are, busier than heck, scrambling from thing to thing, helping others, wondering if you're helping enough others, wondering if you're doing enough for yourself. I mean, that just feels very relatable, first of all. And second of all, just really exactly what you're saying. I think that, you know, you're feeling this need to matter, I guess.
That's right. And then, you know, and then we have Ruth Bader Ginsburg, who lives a life that she has lived. And, you know, at this terrible moment of her passing, that we see all that she did. You know, she really made every moment matter. And then, you know, while I'm just in awe and so appreciative of her and all that she has done, you know, historically, and all she has done for history, and how her legacy, you know, will probably be forever. Then I also feel like, damn, you know, like what, you know, I make a good sandwich, you know, not that I think if we're honest with each other, a lot of us compare ourselves with hugely successful people, and, you know, and it's not just celebrities. It's not just, gee, I really want to be Sharon Stone, or I really, you know, want to be Cher, or I think when they're, yeah, or RBG, right? I think there are some people whose lives are just constellations.
Yeah.
And then I feel like there's so many more of us who are like just watching them sparkle, right?
Yeah.
So yeah, I mean, I feel that. And
Yeah.
I mean, that's not a bad thing to acknowledge.
Mm-hmm. I agree.
Right?
I totally agree.
It's
Okay,
humbling.
question from the chat. Did you plan to write a book of essays, or were these individual essays you wrote over time and realized they could be a book?
So a little bit of both. I have always wanted to write a book of essays, and I've been writing essays for about 40 years. And I even wrote as a teenager. I wrote for Pioneer Press. I wrote op-eds for the Oakleys and the Forest Leaves. I also got paid $25 a column for that, which was huge money.
That's about the
like
same
19,
yeah.
It's about the same right now. This was like 1970, 1971, right?
I know, but they had such a good ad base back then.
And my friends would, you know, babysit for a year for, you know, to get $25. So, and those essays aren't worth including in a book. So I originally thought I would just collect everything, you know, and decide how to put them together. And then someone, you know, an author friend of mine was like, no, because a lot of them have to be new, because otherwise people could just Google you. So, right. So there are 4, right. So there are 4 essays there that were previously published that I absolutely loved, and got permission to reprint. And then there's 12 new ones that I wrote for this book. And yeah, so that was.
I remember reading the swimming essay online. Was it today?
Yeah, that was an NBC. Yeah,
NBC.
Yeah. Thank you.
Yeah.
Yeah, that got some play.
Yeah, I love that one too. Yeah.
Thank you.
Okay, there's a part in the book where you wonder if you can forgive yourself. Let me see if I can find it. I think I marked it.
Well, that's, you know, like we were just talking about, that's finding resolution and, you know, redemption for yourself, not having achieved what I intended.
Yeah.
You know, not.
I wonder if I can forgive myself for reaching my dreams. I wonder if I can forgive myself for not reaching my dreams. And then, you know, your final chapter is about faith. And you mentioned these moments of grace that you experienced. And I wonder if you find it hard to give yourself grace and forgiveness for things that are, you didn't cause anyone harm by not reaching certain dreams, right?
That's right. That's right. I only fell short in my own aspirations. Yeah, I mean, I think a lot of people struggle with that. Although one very close friend of mine who read this book called me and said, "I am so mad at you. You are so hard on yourself. Just stop it." Okay. But I think grappling with what your intentions are and what you can do with a life, that the blessings that you are given and what you can make possible is a different conversation to have with yourself than, I mean, I know a lot of people who, I mean a lot because I don't then stay friends with them. I know some people who are angry all the time. It's like, I could have done that, or that could have been me. I was better than her, or I was better. There people who, you know, my age and a little older who harbor that resentment.
Yeah.
And I never want to do that. I never want to be like diminishing of much, much younger people who do way better than me. And I have that feeling every day because former students of mine are huge successes, right? And it's not, it makes me so happy that they have achieved this enormous success and that they are, you know, household words, and that makes me really happy. And they're 40 years younger than I am. And 30 years younger than, maybe not 40, 30 years younger. Yeah, I'm like, how old are they? Yeah.
Yeah, they're TikTok stars. Yeah.
Right. Yeah.
They're 13. Yeah. I have to say, I fell in love with your dad in this book. In the beginning, the way you described him, I thought like was fun, and like he was sort of, you know, the prototype of a dad type that we don't see all that much anymore. Just sort of like no nonsense, and I'm not really gonna beat it to death. If it's a topic, I'm gonna say what I have to say, and then we're all gonna move on. And obviously he coined the title of your book, act like you're having a good time. But he turned out to be so sweet and kind and supportive and almost like selfless for your mom and you guys. And I just really loved that you included as much as you did about him, because I ended up loving him.
Yeah, my dad was a real prince. I mean, he passed away when he was 66. He passed away in 1988. So none of my sons know him or knew him. So that's really sad. But yeah, you know, there's a downside to having a really, really magnificent father, because you can't find someone like, well, I haven't been able, obviously, to find someone quite like him, and your expectations are really high. It's like, oh yeah, you do that thing. Oh, my dad would never do that thing.
Right.
And also he was such a gentleman, and he was such a marvelously kind, calm person. He was a perfect complement to my mother, who my mother was a disciplinarian. And so he got off the hook because my mom punished us, and you know, so the complications were there in the relationship with my mother, who was also quite wonderful, but she was very strict. And my dad like let her handle all that. So we didn't have to bear any ill will towards him, because he always was just this marvelously warm, supportive soul. Yeah, he was awesome. Yeah.
I love that. I really, agree. Our dad was fabulous. All 6 of us thought we were favorite. Oh, that's really neat. I mean, I know that's sort of funny, but it's also like an amazing trait if you can make everybody feel like they're your favorite.
He told us as much. That was probably either Madeline or Maureen who put that in my sister's.
Maureen,
Maureen, right. So he told us, each one of us, we were the favorite and not to tell anyone. So when my dad passed, we had that conversation. It was like, well, I hate to tell you, but Dad said I was the favorite. And we're like, no, Dad told me I was a favorite. And then it was amusing because it was like, he told you you were the favorite? I was a favorite. And it's so funny that we all kept the secret. Right? He said, I just can't
so
tell
loyal.
anyone.
Yeah.
Right. You
So
are
loyal.
the favorite. You're my favorite, right?
That's so funny.
That is
well,
funny.
There's a lot of beauty in the way your parents raised you that comes out in the book where, I mean, just in small moments, I found myself reading it almost as like a parenting manual. I can turn anything into a parenting manual, but I did. When you talked about like sneaking, alcohol into a mouthwash bottle or like doing like little, rebellious moves. And that you knew that you could sort of teeter toward the edge of life because you were tethered and safe. And like, who doesn't want that for their children, for them to go through the world feeling tethered and safe, and that even if they make a mistake or for a moment or a day or a year or are a terrible person even, that they'll be redeemed and still find a soft place to land. And I just thought that I really took a lot from that model that you spelled out of the way your parents raised you guys. I thought that was really beautiful.
Yeah, they were really great about that. And I don't know that I replicated. I mean, I definitely was not a great as a parent as my father was, and probably not as able to do as much as my mother did, because I was a single parent. But and the way they let us, occasionally make a mistake and know that you were safe. I was telling one of my sons the other day, one of the biggest shocks of my life, and it isn't in this book, was I was a freshman in high school, and I had one friend that my parents didn't like at all. And this is before cell phones and all that. And I said I was going to her house for a sleepover, which I was. And we planned to go to a party in Elmwood Park, and we hitchhiked there. And I mean, it was so, dangerous and scary, right? And we had my mother always called. Everywhere I was, my mother called, is everything okay? And we told the little brother to say that we were, we went out for ice cream, we were in the other room. So anyway, we hitchhiked to this party. I get out of this, stranger's car with my friend. I won't say her name, but we get out of the car and my parents are there. I mean, that is like the biggest shock I have ever had in my life. It's like my mother is like, get in the car. She got the information out of the little brother, where we were going and the address where we were. And I was like, my mother is magical. Like she found out, like, I didn't even know where I was going.
That's amazing.
Yeah, that was a lot.
Wow. All right, well, we've almost reached the hour mark. Is there anything that you want to say that I didn't ask about or bring up that I didn't bring up?
Just that, at this time in the culture, there is so much bombarding us that is so necessary that we consume to stay up to date, even, about what's happening with our BG's replacement and the election, and how to, make sure we're on track with, our loved ones and our children, with COVID, and how to maintain our own health and wellness and all of that, and to stay financially afloat. That, maybe this book is a suggestion as a bit of a diversion from that, and that it could just offer some respite. And if you're going to tune out, and MSNBC for, 15 minutes a night, maybe. Just
Yeah.
read a chapter and have a laugh, or just have an insight or a thought
Yeah.
into, your own life.
Yeah, that's definitely how I experienced it.
Well, thank you, Heidi. This was fun. I love
This
talking
was
to
fun.
you. You know that.
Yeah, this was great. Yeah,
Thank you.
Teresa's popped onto our screens.
Yeah. Hi, Teresa.
Hi, that was a great conversation. I actually have to say I haven't read it, but I'm going to read it now. I think it's what you said about being for the times and taking care of ourselves. I think what you said is that we can get so caught up in what's happening that you forget what the impact of all of that is on you, and take that time is great. And so this book, everybody should get it. Yeah, to read that. So thanks to both of you so much. Thanks for asking us to host. It was a great pleasure. Thank you, both of you.
Thank you. Thank you. Really appreciate it. Thanks, Heidi. We'll
Thank
talk.
you.
Thank you, Teresa.
Great talking to
Thanks.
everybody.
Thank you.
Okay. Good night.
Bye.
Thanks.
Bye.
Bye. Is people still there? Well, I for sure thought that would be a bigger turnout, but thank you so much for.
Oh yeah, I mean, these events are so, all over the place.